couple of people mess about with how many Voracious Readers they want in there for maybe a second Cultured Chaplain. But in general, this is what we're going to be looking at. The Priest versus Warlock, and I think fair to say a pretty rough matchup for the Warlock in a lot of instances.
I think so, yeah. I think now the list has adapted a little bit to be slightly more favorable in this matchup, or at least closer to even in this matchup, but I do think it was a point of contention that perhaps we didn't cover enough back with the old, very greedy version of Handlock. I think one of the reasons why that has kind of fallen by the wayside is that it was just a little bit too greedy for the way the metagame had gone in general, and with the dominance of decks like Shadow Priest coming along, it needed to be slimmed down, and that's where the idea of Ruined Mithril Rod came into play because of those power turns that you can really open up in those spots, and it's where greedy cards like a Netheron have fallen out of favor, because by the time you've filled up your hand to be able to play a one-mana Netheron, Void Touched Attendant has probably done about 186 damage to you, so it's not really going to have a huge factor in this matchup. So I think this build of the deck, in comparison to builds of Handlock from, say, 2 weeks ago, has a much, much better chance against Priest. But certainly, there is a particular card in Seiko's deck called Gordon, which has a significant impact on this matchup, because Divine Shields are a nightmare for Bunnyhoppor and for Handlock to deal with, and that is a pretty beautiful looking opening hand, it has to be said, on Seiko's side.
It really is. Just nice and aggressive, nice and cheap, and as you mentioned, those Divine Shields are super important, but also we did see in the mulligan Bunnyhoppor throw away the Rod, which is just really showing everything you were talking about the matchup, right? There is no time to just sit and pay 3 mana pass on a Rod, even with coin. In this matchup, Bunnyhoppor really digging for those strong removal tools and ways to fight back.
Yeah, it does speak to what I was saying, but it also contradicts it a little bit, because I did also mention that having the Rod does speed up your mid game a little bit, to the point where, you know, you can discount multiple removal spells and fire them all off on one turn to gain back a bunch of tempo in the matchup. I do still think Rod is an extremely powerful card. I did see Bunnyhoppor sort of looking side to side and debating the keeps. I don't know whether he was looking at, you know, matchup win rates, really thinking things through, looking at the deck list from Seiko, really considering all the various interactions from Rod. But, you know, a little bit surprised still to see it thrown away there, but not surprised to see the no quest on turn 1 and instead diverting to that Mortal Coil to remove some damage from play.
Yeah, I mean, this is obviously a strong opening from Seiko, but even looking at this, like, could you imagine coining out Rod and just taking another huge punch, and especially without backfire? I think it would feel very, very slow indeed.
Yeah, but, you know, let's imagine a different start instead, where it was a 1/4 played on turn 1, and then this was a Culturan Chaplain turn, right? Like, would that be too bad to coin Rod out into? I don't think so.
Feels like it sometimes in this matchup.
Okay. I'm saying there are other starts other than Void Touched Attendant starts, right? And sometimes Void Touched Attendant Divine Shield is just a thing that you're not going to beat. So, I don't know.
Pulling Bristleback. Gonna try and demand that Seiko pay 2 for a hero power this turn.
Oh, that is the draw.
I did say try and demand.
Indeed.
This
is it. This is Shadow Priest. Shadow Priest 101. Seiko just going to play his entire hand by turn 3 and say, well, there it is. That's what my deck does. Can you beat it?
God means this hero power and the little Murloc will be able to get the job done. I don't think the healing for 2 is worth losing the Divine Shield. Do you agree?
Absolutely not, yeah. Completely agree. Obviously, you can't get Soul Rendered on this turn, so the mass AoE... Wow, I strongly disagree with this play. I think suddenly the increased potency of Drain Soul or Touch Target on the other side, especially when Neophyte comes down. So there's really only one thing Bunnyhoppor can do this turn, right? He can't play multiple removal spells. He can't tap and play a removal spell. If he's playing a removal spell, he's playing one on this turn. So at this point, you've just made the target of that one removal spell the best minion on your board instead of preserving that Divine Shield. And for me, I'm not sure that's worth it.
I think I would only really like this if there was some form of Raised Dead available, right? Whether that's a Deceptor or whatever it's called. Go on, call it Decepticon every time now. Or whether it's just Raised Dead itself, because then you give the juicy target to your opponent. As you said, there's only one thing they can do. If they kill it, then you can just Raised Dead and play it and push even more damage the turn after. But yeah, I do agree. This feels like, I don't know, a bit of a sacrifice that was not really required.
That is a fantastic draw off the top, though. Boulder Fist Ogre on turn 4, resistant to the Soul Rend that could come down. Bunnyhoppor still yet to get his quest in play, so he is nowhere close to getting any free heals from his life taps or anything like that. He is an absolute mile away from putting together anything effective right now. Not to mention 21 cards still remaining in his deck.
Yeah, so there's 15 here from Seiko, if I can count right. I'm just wondering if he can retain a touch just in case he draws exactly Soul Rend next turn.
To be able to Soul Rend and then touch the remainder of the 6/7? Yeah, sure.
In that case, can he just go Neophyte Touch Quest? Like, just where he is with his mana? Frustration being that if he does use touch, it probably goes on the Neophyte, but then if Raised Dead is drawn, it's Raised Dead into Void Touch Neophyte, which is not what he wants to see.
Yeah, I think I agree with this and agree with what you were saying. Play the quest, get one tap in, which theoretically reduces the damage that life tap does to yourself in the long term, and then just try and get to that Soul Rend and hold on to the touch for the full clear. I know. Disaster.
What was I saying about for the last couple of turns that Raised Dead would be insane?
Disaster.
And although this isn't the Void Touched, Neophyte and Divine Shield on the Merchant, maybe even you Divine Shield the Neophyte here.
I suppose if you're playing the Neophyte, there's no hero power considerations anyway. I was just wondering if it's ever worth pushing the 2, but like Neophyte is mandatory, right? Yep. So if you're playing Neophyte, you might as well get the Divine Shield down. This makes sense.
And I like this as well because that's just 2 targets immune to the Soul Rend now instead of 1.
Yeah, same deal. There's only really one thing that your opponent can do, and you are pushing lethal through it, right? Because if Soul Rend comes down, you know your opponent can't do anything else. You have 9 power in play plus a hero power. Your opponent's at 11, so this is the perfect setup into the Soul Rend.
I wonder.
There's nothing else he can do, right? Because Soul Rend removes, what's that, 2, 4, 6, 8 power from the board. Touch would heal for 4 and remove 2. So that's only 6.
Swings.
So whichever,
instead of 8.
So whichever way you look at it, it's just lethal setup through anything that Bunny can do. And as you mentioned a little bit earlier, 19 cards left in the deck, so there's no kind of sort of tap into the dream shenanigans here from Bunnyhoppor. He's just very dead.
Right. It doesn't have enough mana for it to be relevant anyway, but just to cover the bases, Bunny is Tamsinless, so there's not even that out to do potentially broken things with Tamsin further down the line. Tamsinless sounds like a speedrun trick, now that I mention it, but...
And that's just going to be it. That is a Priest game. Seiko takes game number 1, and honestly, it couldn't have started better. I think every single turn-by-turn play there was exactly what he wanted. There was, if you wanted it to be a perfect world, I guess, at some point a slightly earlier Raised Dead could have been good, but honestly, that top deck Merchant was as good as any Raised Dead you're going to get.
I think you're being very kind, Raven. I think he drew the absolute nuts and made 0 decisions that game, apart from at the very end where he Divine Shielded his 3-2, which was smart. Outside of that,
Priest.
Yeah, outside of that, he had the perfect hand. He then top-decked the biggest minion in his deck. Right, the first off, he top-decked Tour Guide, which was the nuts to perfectly spend 3 mana and destroy the opponent's board without spending 2 mana on a hero power. Then he drew the biggest possible minion in his deck with an empty hand. He drew a 6/7, nothing else bigger in the remainder of the deck. And then he drew a Root to Raise Dead to replay Cult Neophyte. Like, it was objectively perfect. The only thing that was better would have been a Lucia, which was just straight up lethal on any given turn after the initial board that he made. So, yeah, I think, you know, again, the decision at the end to give the Divine Shield to the Cult Neophyte was absolutely correct, but I think that was the one real big point of agency that Seiko had in that whole game. Otherwise, it was just Shadow Priest doing Shadow Priest things.
Yeah, and Bunnyhoppor just got locked out by those Neophytes, and the Soul Rain coming just appearing at just the wrong time, unfortunately for him there. But we are going to be moving on into game number 2, of course. Bunnyhoppor going to be sticking to the Warlock for now, and as this is Conquest, Seiko has to move over from his Priest, and he's going to be choosing to play that Demon Hunter, the hybrid, going into Warlock. Have you collected any strong feelings about this matchup yet, Sottle, with this hybrid Demon Hunter being relatively new?
I'm a big fan of the card Immolation Aura against Warlock, particularly Threat Warlocks. And I think more so than quite a lot of other people. I think when people add Immolation Aura or play a deck with Immolation Aura in it, they see that benefit as being against aggro. But like, Immolation Aura is the biggest AoE in the game. Make no mistake about it. It might cost 2 and it might say that it only deals 1 damage twice, but what it actually does is delete any board of any size at any time if you draw the right cards to line up with it. So if you need time to deal with threats to on the other side, then Immolation Aura, I think, is a fantastic addition to a deck that the way it used to lose against Handlock when it was just Broods is just big threats coming down that it couldn't deal with, right? So now it has that ability to answer that in certain situations. I think the matchup has improved quite a good chunk for this hybrid version of the deck instead.
Bunnyhoppor does have all of the card draw he could ever want in his life, though. Backfire, he has the Tour Guide into Mana Feeder Panthera, depending on where he wants to start with his turn 3. So he will be able to cycle through pretty quickly. And again, the big problem here is if Seiko doesn't go fast enough on potential brutes, there's like that gap, I feel, with this hybrid Demon Hunter, where the gap between brute turns and Il'gynoth kills is the gap where Warlock can make one giant board.
True. Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. Seiko did have a pretty big decision here on this turn, choosing whether to use coin to hit a quest prop here. Essentially, I think the way he evaluated this turn is that he drew his first card, saw it was Philosophy, and then was like, okay, based on that information, do I want to take my discount this turn? And then decided that he did want to in the end, went through with the tradable and the other double jump, and he now has 2 0-mana Philosophy in hand. So he is certainly right now a brute away from a very good time indeed.
Bunnyhoppor has the 2 options, right? Backfire or the Tour Guide Panthera. I think I like the Tour Guide Panthera this turn, just because Backfire is a more condensed way to actually progress your Rod. And also this just puts minions on board, so if there is an early brute, you have something that can potentially at least chip away some of the health.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one of the hard things about this deck is, you know, which of your card draw you want to use to get hold of the Rod and which of the card draw you want to save until after. And I do think just Backfire is the best universal tool to just fire off after you've already played Rod, because it's just a straight up quest complete. As long as you are going into a turn with Rod equipped, of course, because otherwise it still does only draw 3.
There's an argument for Cult Neophyte here as well. It would help reduce down the power of Seiko's next turn, which then might give Bunnyhoppor time to play Rod. But he's just going to go max card draw instead, drop that Panthera, and carry on with his day. I was already looking at the potential of Glide, but honestly, with Tusk Piercer, you just want to get that equipped and start swinging, right?
Demons.
Yeah, I think so. Seiko will also be looking at this hand and just wondering if in any world he can get the Glide to Outcast. And I think if he's doing this, it's a pretty scant admission that he's not going to be able to do that, because Glide, of course, a very powerful card offensively in this particular matchup.
did get the Clutch Viper back in hand, though, because he might well be looking at a rod this turn.
That is true. To the point it could just end up being tap Neophyte this turn for Bunny. Yeah, I wasn't not overly surprised to be seeing this.
It's something I've been seeing more and more often as people are simply just putting more time into this Warlock. He's just efficiency at all times, right? Like, okay, you could play Rod to set up Backfire, but that's a 3 mana turn on 4 mana, and then 5 mana turn if you want to tap after Backfire, sure. Whereas this is just keeping the mana smooth, putting some disruption on his opponent, and also then he can just go Mithril Rod into tap next turn if he really wants, or just go straight with Backfire. So it does keep the curve smoother, and it is that something we've been seeing more and more often. Instead of rushing in terms of playing cards themselves, it's more about just the economy of the deck, I guess. If he doesn't play the Rod this turn, he's never playing it this game, right?
Yeah, it's interesting because the only really alternative to playing Rod is just going max out with card draw, Backfire instead. And like, there is a dynamic in this matchup where, you know, playing Rod and playing out minions in the way he's done is quite nice because it plays around Glide to some degree, right? It plays into the weapon destruction. Sure, your opponent can Rust Drop Viper you. But if you're dumping cards from your hand, with Ruined Mithril Rod being one of them, Glide is about as weak as it's ever going to be in outcast position for your Demon Hunter opponent, right? Whereas the alternative in this position is just to draw a bunch of cards straight up with Backfire or whatever else. And that doesn't play very nicely into the Glide. However, we have seen one Glide come down already, which I think is a big deal in the way that this is factoring in. But Bunny's going for something entirely different in the end and just trying to play consistent Cold Neophytes this game.
Yeah, there were some points there where I think Bunnyhoppor was a little bit indecisive because he also, towards the end of that turn, could have just threw a Giant on the board, which again, I wouldn't hate just because there hasn't been any early brutes. So if you just land that Giant on an empty board, it's unlikely that one Giant gets cleared up. And if it does, your opponent has to spend probably too much, frankly, to kill a single Giant in this matchup. So I wouldn't have hated it, but again, we all know how frustrating Neophyte after Neophyte can be with almost any deck in this match, honestly. Okay, he equips Rod now.
Yeah, Bunny wins the game of chicken, or the game of snake, I suppose, whatever he's playing. He's jamming Snake on his phone instead of playing Hearthstone.
A good game.
You ever fill the screen playing Snake?
Time grows short.
I think I used to get close, but I was never pro. My pro esports career did not start with Snake on phone.
Okay.
I'm sure you did. So I'm sure you hold the world record, right?
I mean, I wouldn't have asked if it wasn't a personal achievement, would I? Really? Come on.
I know. I expect it. Not surprised if you're good at yo-yos, Guitar Hero, Snake's just the next thing on the list, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's just.
I'm just good at everything, mate. Especially being humble.
I bet you were on Robot Wars as well. That feels like something you...
What? That's the most random thing you've ever said. I have not, in fact, been on Robot Wars.
Right.
No. I'm not Craig Charles. Easily confused. Similar accents, I know, but yeah.
Bunnyhoppor, yeah, getting through the list, getting through the deck, sorry, pretty fast. It allows that Backfire to really accelerate him to that 10 cards or less. But again, now choices. You can just play the Giant on this board. Maybe he doesn't think it's worthwhile. He's going to focus on just trying to draw more as well. Does have the floating mana though, so I guess may as well drop it down at this point. Seiko is just kind of on 10, which I'll be honest, took me by surprise when I looked.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the consistent neophyte pressure, right? I've often said, I was saying this in testing as well, like, I think this is just the best hand for the matchup with handlock, where you get early neophyte, early raised dead, and you're just kind of zooey, right? You're playing your panthers, your tour guides, your neophytes, your raised deads, and you're just recycling those same minions over and over again and just pressuring the demon hunter. It tends to get there. It plays around them just spending all of their mana cycling and completing quest, right? Because A, you're pressuring, B, you're playing cult neophyte every turn. It also plays very, very nicely around glide, because you're actually just spending your mana playing minions and playing cards out of your hand instead of just tapping and backfiring. So I do think this is the best way to play this particular matchup. It's just sometimes you don't get given the hand to do it, right? But to Bunnyhoppor's credit, he did get given this hand, and I think he has executed it very, very nicely so far.
Yeah, when you sat at this point in the game on double backfire, you're just feeling good about life.
True.
All the card draw in the world for him there. Seiko, what can he even do at this point? You have to just use up a good chunk of resources clearing this up just to not die. Not going to have the time or mana to play Kurtrus, which is going to delay me even further. Does mean Bunny can get the reduction with this rod for the first durability, as Seiko also didn't have the time or mana to play the Viper.
Yeah, first awkward looking turn though here for Bunnyhoppor, and yeah, so now finally it's a hand that could not really effectively spend mana on pressure, right? So now for the first time you see the backfire come down and the focus really switch to spending mana on drawing cards here instead of just getting minions into play.
Yep. Now the strong things happen. I'm guessing he's going to backfire and hold that life tap. Go for a secondary reduction. So he can just draw most of his deck right now. He can coil the tour guide. Like,
oh yes, that's the juice. 1 mana neophyte alongside a flesh giant as well. He can now choose to tap if he really wants to. I think it's perfect quest interval as well, right? He's 6 out of 8. He just double backfired this turn for 6, so can tap for 8 to get the TAMs in, but will need the hand space to make it happen.
and also there's still a chance he can get Scavenger, right? Like Scavenger's playable. This 2 mana floating.
Ropey rope. This spinning card animation is the bane of many a player's existence in Hearthstone. If you don't account for it, it can really limit the actions you're able to do afterwards, lining up trades, pointing spells, getting minions into play, but Bunny manages to get there.
Ooh.
He's a rope master. He was born in the rope, molded by it. He knows.
Is this ever a glide in a dream for Seiko?
Would we both like to play this game with no quest reward in our hand?
At this point, it benefits Bunnyhoppor a lot more than it does Seiko. The quest being in hand, sorry.
Well, at the same time, like, if you're spending 5 mana on Glide, what are you doing about the 16 power that's facing you down on the other side of the board? That's an alternate question that we have to ask this turn.
I believe Dude is in the answer somewhere.
Ah, I see. Funny upset. This is something that could, of course, been played around by just holding onto the life tap as well, right? Because as you were talking about, he had 0 mana life tap available. So he did not have to secure the bag with TAMs in hand that turn. He could have just started a following turn with the life tap. That's awkward because that does mean that you have to start with 2 hand space in hand, right? You have to start the turn with 2 hand space so you can tap, draw a card, and get TAMs in. Because you don't want to be wasting mana on doing other things before you get your TAMs in down. So that's a little bit awkward overall, but it is a possibility to play around that outcome.
It's just going to be game, right?
Damage. Yep.
Game 2 going over to Bunnyhoppor, and Seiko just could not get going, right? The control and timing of neophytes and the repeat neophytes from Bunnyhoppor, I think, were a big deal there to really slow him down. But also, as you mentioned, just that kind of zoo approach just helped Bunnyhoppor out a lot, because outside of those immolation auras, which you mentioned previously, and mainly saved for the huge board clears from Warlock, you're not going to immolation aura just a Panther and a 1/1, right, to kill it off. So that damage stacked up, and like I said, you blinked in this game, and suddenly Seiko was around 10 health and was in some trouble.
Yeah, and it was very annoying. I know at one point last season, I think I was fixing rank from, 4-digit legend to reasonable 3-digit legend and approaching 2-digit legend. And as I got higher at the ranks playing Demon Hunter, the propensity for Warlock to not tap on turn 2 and turn 3 went through the roof as I got up through the ranks. Suddenly, as I was approaching like 200 legend, 100 legend, every Warlock I would play against would just be playing minions on turn 2 and turn 3, So I think it is certainly a big improvement to the win rate of the matchup overall, and I think it's very, very frustrating for Demon Hunter to play against. And I think in the end, it's the number one thing that you do have to do, because it can be considered a free win from the Demon Hunter side a lot of the time just because of the power of the card Glide, and that's how you most effectively play around that scenario.
Well, we are moving on now, and we are going to get one of those surprises from the lineups this week, at least. Is the Shaman from Bunnyhoppor is going to be going up against the Demon Hunter from Seiko once again. And one of the few believers in Shaman for at least this week's worth of meta, Sottle. Not a complete conversion rate to this Demon Hunter from every player in Grandmasters.
Yeah, it's been Bunny and Tice that we've seen, at least, who have very, very similar lineups. They have been known to practice together in the past, part of that practice group with Casey and RDU thrown in there as well. So this time around, we are seeing similarities in their lineups. Both players playing Quest Shaman, which is unusual in itself. Bizarre to be saying that, a week on from every single player in all 3 regions almost having Quest Shaman in their lineup. But here we are with Quest Shaman now being a bit of an outlier. And also some little other twists thrown in there that are signifiers that they built these lineups together with Mankrik in Rogue, for example, from both Bunnyhoppor and Tice. But yes, we did see middling success from Tice with this lineup, but Bunnyhoppor was able to 2-0 through the group with it. So I think overall, if you look at Tice making Decider game with it, Bunnyhoppor going 2-0 with it, it's at least a moderately successful lineup going into this week, right?
Yeah, and that's really fair to say. We'll see if Bunnyhoppor can improve that statement in any way by taking this series, but this matchup's kind of a strange one as well, because Shaman normally does take quite a while to really get going when it doesn't just win with the extreme aggro in the early game. So I do wonder whether that's just going to be the plan for Bunnyhoppor, is to play, kind of like you play versus Warlock, like play pretty aggressively and try and just push max damage, as opposed to relying on some kind of Brakan shenanigans to get the job done. Because I feel like by the time that happens, you'd imagine your opponent's getting close to just some kind of Il'gynoth lethal.
Could you repeat that?
There you go. Straight away. Bunny just going max tempo. Plays his River Croc this turn. And unless it's like, what, Immolation Aura, Coin Hero Power, that thing's sticking. So I think it's a good decision to be able to follow this up now.
One of the problems, isn't it, when you end up with a deck like this Demon Hunter, is it's so linear and so just has, what, really 2 of that removal card in the whole deck, and that's more or less the outside of hero powers. Then it just gives your opponent, they don't even have to think as to whether it's safe to play this. They just know it is. Like, it's not even a risk at this point.
Yeah, and that's when this deck has already moved in the direction of more removal, right? With Fell Screen Blast and Immolation Aura both coming into the deck in most builds now in the hybrid version.
Bunnyhoppor now has the choice to get guaranteed value from the Note Taker or play a 3-drop on 3. Did go for the value. Actually wouldn't mind seeing another draw with investment and then just play the Zapper depending on what gets played.
Yeah.
Because if this gets immoed, great. You immoed a 1-drop and a 2-drop on turn 3. Fine.
Yep, agree with this, and it's a reasonable curve to overload, right? This is kind of the curve we were talking about yesterday as well. It's not in the conventional sense where you're playing multiple 3-drops, but it's the opportunity to overload on 3 and then go into 4. Bunny chooses not to do that, keeping his crystals fully open for the next turn.
There's 1 Immolation Aura in Seiko's hand. Will be important to keep an eye on that card. Could be difficult if a Glide comes into play, of course, so I'll let you guys off if that happens. But in general, Just to see when Seiko decides to commit it, because you know, generally speaking, the boards are only going to get bigger from the Shaman side, right? Always be a little bit tricky here as to how Seiko wants to approach this. It's never as straightforward as it looks of, oh, well, Spectral's outcast, just play it. Because it might not get him his quest progression he actually wants this turn or how he wants it.
Whoa! Filth!
That's all.
No! That was disgusting. His acrobatics cost 0. Dari studies, philosophy. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, even though philosophy was cheap and dumpable, it would then move a Moarg over to the right-hand side. Like, I'm really trying to get this Spectral play, but obviously, even after you get your acrobatics aura to go off, you're drawing 2 more cards over to that right-hand side, and that is just too slow. I don't know what the delay was about. After the 0 mana cards came into hand off the acrobatics, that's just go time. You just play cards at that point because anything is possible. That was far too much time wasted from Seiko that turn, and you can see what it cost him, Raven. Everything.
The difference in board state is ridiculous at this point. He could have had 2 brutes down, right?
Raven, we should be in game 4 right now. That's where we should be, not just letting Bunnyhoppor play minions onto an empty board.
It's a big whiff, isn't it? I'm just sat here recovering.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's even why, like, it's why I cut you off mid-sentence, because I was like, okay, the stuff's about to happen. We need to stop talking about anything else, because this turn's insane. But it just didn't. He just sat there and waited.
So you were wrong to cut me off? Nothing
I was. I apologize. So rude.
Okay, can Seiko recover, right? It's not like this was the last turn of the game and he's now receiving lethal due to the rope. He has options. Glide off the top could help him out.
Yeah, I imagine with this hand, though, he kind of wants to reset with manual card draw because, you know, Brute already in hand, 0 mana Philosophy in hand, etc.
Does have Guild Trader and at worst a 1-draw Spectral, not the end of the world. Has the weapon swing too.
Yep. With 0 mana Immo, he might be looking at the implications of just keeping Guild Trader in hand here as well. But it looks like he's just going to dump Spectral from the left-hand side instead. Might just be using up the Moarg Immo this turn to be able to clear up this board state. I do think that's a bit of a frivolous use of the card Immolation Aura, though, in this particular matchup. But it does unlock a lot of issues with this hand. Once again, ropes appearing. There is possibilities of, you know, 5 or 6 more cards being played this turn. Okay, he's ending it there. That's fine.
It's like, not again.
Yeah.
Kind of rough, though, because couldn't he have just done that Immo turn next turn, then? Obviously, it costs mana next turn to an extent, but only 2.
The storm is in me.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, he also...
And then just do it next turn and still Spectral for 0 on the far side?
Yeah, honestly, I think you can present the alternate argument there as well, which is why did he stop at this point this turn?
Excuse me, sure.
Because he's floated 1 mana, he still had Coin Spectral Sight available, he still had a Brute in hand, he still had a weapon swing to go off, etc, etc. So yeah, I still think there's a few questions that you could build there that are very relevant.
Okay, there's Brute. 2 cheap philosophies.
Yeah.
Don't pass.
Yeah, it might be happening a couple of turns later than it should be.
But it's happening.
It's happening.
Another one.
That one's outcast. The one on the left is also outcast at any point.
Another one.
No, we've cut that from handlock.
Oh, okay.
I see.
Spectral gets everything down to 0. There we go. There's the good stuff.
Like a bunny, I was like, no, stop!
This is what they call in the business, Raven, throwing for content. This was deliberate. He just wanted to get more brutes 2 turns down the line.
Look at them all. Anything particularly you do here? Probably just hero power swing into the zap. Just sensible at this point.
I'm glad Bunnyhoppor can see the funny side of proceedings here. Oh, I didn't even complete double quest. What a scrub, honestly. Unacceptable. Yeah.
Okay. What does he need? Charge call into spell damage into double flame. Needs something, doesn't he? Okay.
Yep. And then?
Yeah, I was saying okay the discover, not the actual outcomes.
I see.
He needed oh my god, the card, I forgot the name. 2 mana. Earthquake thing.
Landslide.
Landslide, there we go.
2 mana earthquake thing. That's a lovely pile of 6 drops. Yeah, wonderful.
He's getting there. Rome. Most overrated card in Hearthstone ever. How much damage are we on now?
4.
24?
Any interest in just playing Il'gynoth as a giant here? No, apparently not. Okay.
No, you shouted at him for not getting his quest done last turn. He's getting it done this turn, Sol.
True. Yeah, fair enough.
Got to be all face, right? Maybe you trade the Tauren into the 2/3. Going to guarantee the extra kill on the roam by doing this. Still makes sense. Didn't know, of course, the frenzy just kills another enemy minion.
Yeah, I believe the dormant minion is what, the imprisoned
Deal
Antaean?
10.
The one that deals 10 when it wakes up? Yeah.
Never be afraid of your inner power.
You win this.
That's just going to be it. Bit of a big blunder there from Seiko in that game, but he did get away with it. He took the victory over Bunnyhoppor, and now he just needs to focus. Just shake a little bit, you know, get rid of all that. The game's happened, it's finished. Worry about it later, stress over it later, but for now he just needs to focus and get a win with this rogue, because although he did mess up, he just about had the recovery there with the huge brute turn that was given to him, and you know, that doesn't happen often. Normally when you just completely whiff like that, you get punished, but I guess in this deck it was early enough in the game and against the right deck to not really feel the burn too much.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, Raven, but personally, when I need to calm down, when I'm feeling a little bit shaky, when I've made a mistake, when I want just a nice, easy game of Hearthstone that can't possibly go wrong, I reach for Garrote Rogue. I think that just makes a lot of sense. I think Seiko will be able to take this one down pretty easily.
And Seiko's like, can I just play Priest again?
Yeah, right.
Please? But yeah, he is going to
turn my brain off and play my entire hand on turn 3, please. I mean, you can also do that sometimes with Rogue, to be fair.
That is true. He's going to be on that Rogue versus the Shaman once again from Bunnyhoppor. But yeah, that's got to shake you a little bit, that game. Even though Seiko won, like I said, that is one you feel bad about as a professional Hearthstone player. I think there were multiple questionable decisions, and I'm not even just talking about the rope turn in that series.
Yes, but we will now move on. Garrote Rogue, the build, again, fairly standard, but when we're comparing it, say, to Felkane, when I said for him, the one interesting thing was 2-1 Thief, 2-1 Thief 0 Foxy Fraud. Seiko, in, of course, typical Seiko fashion, has gone for 1-1, 1-1 Thief, 1 Foxy Fraud. I am a Foxy Fraud gamer. I think it's a card that's becoming more and more unfashionable in this deck, but I do still think it offers a ton of upside for what it does. So I'm a little bit sad to see less and less of them getting played, but it does seem to be so unanimously agreed upon that at the very least no more than one is appropriate to the deck. That I think, you know, perhaps I am on the wrong side of history for this one, but we shall wait and see. We'll see if that one of Foxy Fraud does make a difference here for Seiko, because as mentioned, and as you set up, and as I then made fun of, he does kind of have to refocus, get that previous game out of his head, and, play arguably what many people peg as the most difficult deck to play in the metagame right now, Garrote Rogue.
I started off reasonably well with Shroud of Concealment. He does. It's one of the keeps that isn't field contact in the list, just to be able to dig a little bit deeper here. Bunnyhoppor, on the other hand, has a reasonably aggressive opening, and I don't particularly mean that purely just as minion aggression, but just a lot of stuff to do and a lot of overload to get done in this early game. I've seen Bunnyhoppor.
Distinct feeling that Bunny enjoys these early game turns with Shaman. I think it's the exact kind of stuff that he just loves to sit and just plan out a curve over 3 or 4 turns. I think, again, you see him looking to the side, looking at deck lists, looking at various outs. Yep. I think on multiple occasions he's come out with various creative ways to play these early game hands. And here we are again. Coin Wandmaker into, I would assume, Wandmaker again to follow up.
Yes, the thing, it's not the first time we've seen this from Bunnyhoppor, and I'm pretty sure it won't be the last in terms of just that odd quest. I don't mean even odd as in bad, but just a different approach to getting the quest sorted and playing them out. And I do like this a lot. Wandmaker into Wandmaker seems pretty good to me.
We're just going to get pyroblasted by Wandmakers, apparently. Okay, cool. Sign me up. This seems seems to have been a pretty good decision for Bunnyhoppor.
You like the second one?
Interesting diversion now, though, isn't it? To go quest with Zapper instead, because even then you are potentially piling on a lot of pressure. Quest guidance even, maybe. But, I mean, if your opponent's plan was to dagger down a 2-2 and take 6 from it, I kind of just want to put another 2-2 next to it and say, all right, what about this one?
Yeah, and the next turn, Zapper, Lightning Bolt, face. It's all coming together.
It's just lethal.
I mean, it's triple Lightning Bolt. It's getting there.
Game's over.
Maybe he just plays quest guidance next turn and then sets up for like the, I don't know, quadruple lightning bolts coming out of Zapper. Oh, it's got to be. What's he need? He needs 5 mana. So turn 5, Seiko's dead.
It's 15 from hand on turn 5. Yeah, I think you can see it on Bunny's face. It's like, okay, I know I started out playing this game in a weird way, but I was not expecting it to get this weird this quickly.
Can afford to overload next turn, because that is turn 4, and we all know turn 5 is when the game ends, and he needs 5 mana for it.
Well, no, the very opposite, right? If he's going to overload, he needs to do it this turn. He can't overload next turn.
That's what I said. He can overload going into next turn.
I see, okay.
Because it's turn 5, he needs it free. So he can start with guidance.
Yes, agreed. There's also the small matter of this 9 damage that he's missing, but, you know.
That's what guidance is for.
Alright. I think in reality, this is probably the play. But again, like, there's a very good chance now, right? He's overloaded for 2 this way, but there's a very good chance that the vast majority of this gets to stick, right? And there's just minions that continue to attack. I mean, I really like this play, honestly. I think there's a very good chance against an average rogue hand here that your 3/2s get to attack and also have spell damage with lightning bolts on the following turn.
Yep, it's fair. I hate it, but it's fair. Going to be at least a brain freeze here to kill off 1.
Yep. No PP though, no prize plunderer, which would have been the big punish here. We see Shadow Step in hand, so that would have been entire board deleted at that point if there was a prize plunderer. Cult Neophyte, far more disruptive than we initially gave it credit for as well going into this.
Tricky, I hate to suggest it, but is there ever a world where one of the bolts doesn't go face and just use it to kill off the Neophyte this turn?
Yeah, it's obviously less damage it's less damage immediately to protect the Wandmaker and bolt the minion, but obviously then you still have a Wandmaker. Need to take note of the fact as well that the first Overload card Bunnyhoppor plays this turn will unlock crystals, so he actually has significantly more mana to play with this turn than it looks like.
What you're saying is bloom, bolt, bolt, bolt.
No, that actually
You'd be
still
one mana off. Yeah.
wouldn't work, right? Yeah, that costs 1 too much.
Let me dream.
That's the case. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But on the other hand,
But wait a minute, does it work? It's like, Bunnyhoppor just finds a way. He's just got small mana. Plays the guidance as well.
yeah.
A little bit scary though. 9 health and a dream. Kazakus could help him out a little bit here, but Seiko's gonna just go for the contact. Good initial swindle there. What's the follow-up? Does he just neophyte again and chuck a couple of trades in there?
Got to be neophyte. I'm tempted even to neophyte step neophyte here, right?
Yeah. He'll draws a card. Make use of it while you can. I feel like you wouldn't be surprised if the contact dies next turn from Bunnyhoppor. So
Yeah.
it's either the double neophyte or bounce the Gordon and give the contact Divine Shield. I wouldn't overly hate either.
No, so I don't think you ever shadow step Gordon because you want to use Gordon to trade, but if you're worried about protecting the field contact, just shadow step the field contact and pay one for it next turn, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
That way you play around just like weird outs like Devolving Missiles or Revolve or whatever else as well on top of anything else, right? Because remember, this is a box class that we're playing against, lest we forget. You don't just play around the cards that they have in their deck. You have to play around everything.
They play around even more burn damage, though.
That's true. All right, Marshall's
And another lightning bolt.
Yeah, Storm Strike, Dunk Tank, Rock Biter,
Shrine.
Portal. Yeah. A lot of ways we can add to this damage. Serpent Shrine is
That'll do it.
there. Still
Needs
currently only the 6 damage.
Yeah, but asking for one more source of 3 damage from your deck or from guidance isn't that big of an ask, is it?
Yeah, and because of the bloom, right, I think it works because he now goes into 6 mana next turn, so he spends 5 in total on Serpent Shrine, Lightning Bolt, and Guidance, meaning he has 1 mana left remaining naturally, which means he has 3 mana left remaining with the Lightning Bloom. So that opens up Storm Strike, another Serpent Shrine Portal, all that good stuff.
It's so painful in these situations, honestly, as a caster and a viewer, is just seeing that we know what's potentially coming here, and Seiko just doesn't. He could have gone for some kind of Kazakus first to see if he could get lifesteal. And,
Before he removed the minions on the
before he killed the minion, and just to see if he could just heal up a little bit. Because again, although we can see, right, and that's easy, Seiko cannot, but you don't really want to be in a multiple of 3 against Shaman anyway. Whispering card names.
That's the one. He sees it. Seiko knows. He has critical information. He knew the Shadow Step target that was of the utmost importance there was the Cold Neophyte. Great decision in the end for Seiko. He was out of natural neophytes, but he did still have that 1 remaining step as an out. Marsh Spawn is a dead draw because there was no spell played on the previous turn for Bunny, and now that Lightning Bloom plus Guidance out does not exist because the Cult Neophyte has snatched it all away.
Is the potential play for Bunny?
Ooh.
Wait. Does Bunny ever just not kill anything here? And just like maybe bolt face?
Why?
I'm just trying to quickly check, like, well, how does Seiko play another minion that turn?
Sure. No, I see what
full.
you're saying.
So then if he just does 2 Garrotes, he can't draw cards.
That's why. Your play doesn't work because the 3/3 appears. But, I mean, in theory, it's not ridiculous, but I do still kind of disagree with it because I think there was mid to high teens levels of damage in play, and then suddenly, like, even if Garrots start to get played, you're in trouble, right? Like Secret Passage, whatever else coming out at that point. But in reality, the play isn't even worth entertaining because it doesn't work, right? A 3/3 just appears on the other side of the board.
But just not bolt. Pass. Still got the mana to do it all next turn, so.
Only you could double down even harder in a situation like that.
Thank you.
Oh no! He's becoming uninsultable! He's evolving!
I'm almost
Seiko going to try and just get the last few cards out here.
Yep. There is that Foxy not having a huge impact, it must be said, but just the Bloodfen Raptor in play here, still representing a good chunk of damage.
Again, might look a little bit strange, but there's this secret passage is to just remove the secret passage card from the game as well.
Yes. And so animations, more animations, and some more animations, and then Bunnyhoppor will be
Wait,
back in town.
That's it, right? That's 3 damage, pretty easy.
Yep, that'll do it. Bloom, Bolt, Serpent Shrine, Overdraft. Overdraft was the draw off the top to be able to clutch that one out in the end, even with the Brucan coming into hand at the end of it all, just for a bit of icing on the cake. But that is going to be a very interesting win for Bunny. A very strangely navigated, one of the weirdest games of Shaman I've ever seen, where the plan was crystallized really, I think, on turn 2. When the first One Maker was played, gave a Lightning Bolt, and then Seiko went, okay, dagger up, hit it. I'll take 6 from this One Maker. And then Bunny played a second One Maker, and then also got a Lightning Bolt from it, and at that point the Zapper had come into hand as well. That was turn 2, and at that point the plan was clear, right? Bunny was just going to have to go for straight up burst damage. I think he understood the best way to do it as best he could, which was just to front load the minions. Obviously we were kind of memeing around with the idea of just 15 from hand on turn 5, but I think getting the Zappers down as Bloodfen Raptors just to attack, potentially then stick around for spell damage, which is what ended up happening, right? They got an attack in and one of them stuck around for the spell damage. I think ends up cashing out more damage on average overall.
Yeah, it was a really cool game, really weird game, and I think one that you may have heard of if you've been watching Hearthstone for a while is sometimes you do what your hand tells you to do, and Bunnyhoppor very much did that this game. It was a perfect example. It does mean we are moving on to the 5th and final game of this series. Both series now go into game number 5 today, and it is going to be that, again, Priest versus Rogue matchup. So, as far as Sottl's concerned, Bunnyhopper's already won the series, being on the Priest. And I just think it's a reasonable, a person as I am, a 50-50 kind of matchup.
Yeah, I mean, what a surprise, right? Raven sitting on the fence on an issue, saying something could go either way, refusing to express
oh, you can't
any
throw
strong
that
opinion.
at me.
Oh, incredible stuff. Never seen that one before. Tell me more, Raven, about how everything is right down the middle.
Okay, what are the odds on a coin flip, Sol?
Well, assuming a fair, non-weighted coin, 50-50.
No, Sol's sitting on the fence again. With just saying facts. Anyway, moving on.
If you flipped a coin 100 times, what are the odds that you get 50 heads? Is a better question.
It depends on the coin, doesn't it?
Fair enough. I'll accept that answer and we can move on.
Void Touch Attendant and the Deceptor in the opening hand for Bunnyhoppor is a great combination because it kind of puts your opponent in that awkward position of these are minions you want to kill, but then there's a Raised Dead to bring them back again to try and kill them again. So Bunnyhoppor, not too much of a surprise here, keeping hold of these in his mulligan. Seiko, on the other hand, I think, was that a full mull? I did miss it just a little bit there.
I didn't catch it either, to be perfect.
It looked close to a full mull if it wasn't a full one in itself. And honestly, I can't really see any cards outside of Shroud that he would have actually kept anyway.
You can certainly keep Prep Shroud. I think that's a very reasonable thing to do in
sure.
spots if that was available. Yeah. For this very reason.
It's a good response, isn't it?
Insane response. made even more so by the fact that he just hit the absolute nuts from that Shroud as well, with double Octobot now in hand. Bunny can reconsolidate. It's not like that one prize plunderer has just forced him off the board entirely. He has a decent hand to keep the engine going for some time here. But double Octobot with all these resources in hand now with Secret Passage and Swindle might just be tough to beat.
Okay, it's not Lucia. Which is a problem, honestly.
I like that you've learned.
What, to just shout Lucia every turn and presume that's the winning card?
Right. But if you remember yesterday, we were in this exact same situation and you were talking about gandling. But now, you see, as the professional, experienced broadcaster that you are, you have
just
learned
scream
from your
Lucia.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's the correct thing to do in all situations. Actually, sorry, I forgot. The correct thing to do in all situations is actually to scream, Infestation!
I'm sticking with the Lucia.
I love you. But it was very fun.
Yeah, early raised deads being a pretty powerful layer for Bunnyhoppor. Can just pound the pressure. Of course, procs the Octo now to stop any heavy card draw before the fact.
Poking? Is he going Gordon this turn then? He is, okay. Wants to clear up, win board, consolidate, make sure there aren't trades available to be made for the opponent so he can maximum leverage the Void Touched Attendant on the following turn. Eyebrows raised at the second Octobot from the Shroud of Concealment. Yep. Yes, Bunny, I agree.
Yeah, Lucia! Oh!
No!
Would have been huge though, right?
You just always lose the 50-50. Or the coin flip, as some people might call it. Irritatingly, you now probably have to bump again into this Octobot. Might be tempting just to get the Void Touched Attendants down on board now, because obviously this will be the last opportunity he might have for a while to actually get any use out of them as Void Touched Attendants, because once Gandling comes down, as any caster worth their salt knows, the Void Touched Attendant can't be used for purpose anymore.
What would you think about just the hard play Gandling there?
I mean, I think for the reasons I was just talking about, I'm kind of against that, right? I kind of like this idea first of Void Touched Attendants might just push a ton of damage this way first, and then you can use Gandling and 4/4s as a follow-up after this.
Yeah. I just wondered if, like, it does that realistically push more damage than if the Gandling lives. And then you just play, like, 4/4s next turn? Like, what does Rogue do against that? Like, is that just more powerful in general? It's just what I was thinking about, that's all. Not necessarily feeling too strongly either way.
No, you present a good argument. Awkward on the Secret Passage.
Yeah, Seiko
probably just going to end up being the Org Merchant, right? Is the most.
You might just have to be happy with it, yeah.
Yep. One Thief obviously opens up some potentials for next turn, but in terms of just making the best board state he can right now to compete with what's on the other side, I think Guardian Org Merchant was the best way to go. It means that very little of this damage that Bunny wants to be sinking to the face is actually entitled to do that now, right? Because most of these minions are going to have to be cleared up from Bunny on this turn.
You can trade one into the field contact, play Gandling, and then Org Merchant the field contact away, which looks like as good a start as any.
True.
Maybe then trade the Neophytes and value trade the second Void Touched, and just try and grab control of the board. Defend the Gandling at all costs.
So gross, isn't it? It's 11 damage of minion attacks this turn that aren't going face, and instead you're killing 1 health minions. Like, it just seems so inefficient, but...
It does. I just feel like 11 damage may as well be 100 damage away from lethal, right? If you just try and push it all face.
like a whistling word.
Not gonna go gambling though.
I think 11 damage was 100 damage away from lethal. I'd play a different game.
If you really
Doesn't
think
sound
about
fun.
it kind of is.
Hey, loser!
Okay, well, Swindle's gonna have to get a lot of work done here for Seiko.
Wasn't me!
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, I think honestly, Penflinger alone was such a great resource to have access to that turn. Just because of the way Bunnyhoppor had set things up, I think you saw his reaction to it as well. That was the one thing he didn't want to happen, but it's what came down. He immediately saw him screw up his face. Because I think he knows he's going to have a little bit of difficulty sticking a board here unless he picks up some juicy draws to go alongside this Gandling. But he's already down 2 raised deads, so his ability to have one big explosive turn with Gandling is very limited now.
You're paying for my discretion.
Choose soon.
Does have the secret passage as well for next turn to just choose a new hand, basically, if he doesn't like the draw off the top, so pretty powerful overall. Now Bunnyhoppor's got a decision between Voracious Reader and Gandling Hero Power. And this is more of a tough one because the Reader could feed the Gandling turn, but if you play Gandling first and it lives like you want it to, the Reader will not do such things. Still gotta be Gandling, right? As you can tell, I'm probably getting frustrated that this minion hasn't been played yet.
Yeah.
You have to read this one.
This time I am with you. I think I personally would have gone with the Gandling this turn as well, just to start trying to generate some kind of threat. Bunny's plan here is now like 3 turns down the line, 2 turns from now, right? Because I talked about how he didn't have the ability to do the explosive turn in 1 turn with Gandling. This gives him the ability to do that, where he picks up a bunch of resources in 1 turn and then loads out in 1 turn. It's just whether or not Seiko's hand can do anything disgusting enough in the meantime to make the game irreversible by that point. It's a risk for sure. And there's certainly an argument that you keep making, and arguably rightly so, which is put a 6 health minion in play, and how does it get dealt with, right?
You did get a couple of good minions for it, though. The Tour Guide, very nice on the Gandling turn, of course. The Horror is pretty cool as well. But Seiko was considering the field contact that turn, but decided to go a little bit different here and go for that. Go for the secret passage. Is there any great reason not to prep out the Garrote here? Do you think Seiko does need some kind of combo to win the game?
I think he might, honestly. I think this game is meandering towards kind of a stalemate position. It doesn't really feel like he's going to get a dominant position on board necessarily, although taking the 5-mana Golem, okay, if he's taking 5-mana Golem, then I support this idea a little bit more, right? Because now this is a much better push to win board immediately, and then just use the Garrote damage as a little bit of an auxiliary backup, whereas the other way to do it, I suppose, was to take 1-mana Golem and just try and preserve yourself in that position, go for the combo kill, because you are getting relatively close to the bottom of your deck with 10 cards remaining.
Yeah, slowly turn into a fatigue plan. Bunnyhoppor now does still have Wriggling Horror, Tour Guide plans. Can kill off the 2-1 no problem at all and start to generate a huge board.
This Wriggling Horror is disgusting, by the way, because now 6 health Taunt minion in play, and that 6 health double punishes, because the Greater Golem not only has 5 attack, but it's also +2/+2, making the other minion on board 5 attack as well. So the 6 health on the Homunculus instead of the 5 is punishing Seiko in 2 different angles right now.
Does have Prize Plunderer Shadow Step though, so that is something. Although he might feel that he needs to save it. Maybe it's Golem Hero Power now, and then next turn he has Contact, Plunderer, Neophyte, Shadow Step.
You have to play Plunderer Step this turn or you don't kill the Gandling, right?
Give me that.
Means potentially 2 more 4/4s coming down next turn.
And with all his spell damage gone, he probably can't rely on the field contact turn right to win the game because it's just like damage isn't there.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When he did prep Garrote on the previous turn, he kind of locked himself into winning on tempo, which is, you know, it's not necessarily a wrong decision, but it is a decision that limits options. It's just sometimes it's correct to do that. It's something that Secret Passage is such a skill testing card in that regard, because you kind of have to make those decisions, right? You have a snapshot of a hand that you only have temporarily. So you have to make those decisions of, well, I have to decide right now, this moment, what I am doing with these resources. It's not like a normal hand where you're like, well, I can figure it out later. Or I'll just leave this card in my hand for another turn. Right. You have to make that call right there.
I like the full trade there from Bunnyhoppor. Don't let Prize Plunderer be a problem.
Too quiet.
There is still, I believe, 1 Shadow Step still left in the deck, so that Prize Plunderer could have caused some big issues.
Rigged fair game. Fatigue plan. We're back on. Unfortunately, Seiko is not a quest warlock, so he does have to worry about things such as fatigue this game. Fire Sale does seem like a more responsible pickup. Once again, the only real way Seiko's going to get there this game is by winning board.
I'm a little bit surprised he picked Fire Sale.
How come?
Because he had Flurry, and he could have done this play and then flurried these minions, which then, in most instances, guards the majority of them, right? Whereas, like, not only does he have to win board, he needs minions to win board with. And then,
True.
Like, if he's letting these 2 minions on board now from Bunnyhoppor trade, like, how does he actually deal the rest of this damage? Because Fire Sale doesn't make a huge difference, right? His one card left is Shadow Step. So Bunnyhoppor just trade hero power?
Right. Whereas playing the Flurry, he could have maybe banked, what, 5 or 6 more damage out of these minions, which could have made all the difference in the long run. Yeah, it's very true.
Slight frustration here is... Oh, apologies, there isn't any Raids Deads left, right? But he's used them both. Never mind. There's no frustration. Forget about it. Bunnyhoppor's just going to do a very straightforward turn with straightforward minions.
And now Bunny's the fatigue deck, right? So he's just playing control.
And that's the issue with this Fire Sale, right? Okay, clear Bunny's board once. He's got 12 cards left and a good hero power. Like...
So Bunny knows the remaining cards are 1 Shroud, 1 Garrote, 1 Shadow Step, and a 1 Thief card.
Yes.
So the Shadow Step is probably the only real scary thing there, the only thing that he has any particular agency in. The 1 Thief card could be anything. You can choose to play around ranges of things if you want, but based on Shadow Step remaining, I think that is the correct kill, right? That's the limit of the Shadow Step target.
Yep. Evocation, Deep Freeze, all sorts of silly things that 1 Thief can get you to try and
Mask, right? Even here.
Mask, yeah.
Not clear up most of this board and push a bit of damage to face.
Ignite.
Ignite is the one, yeah, that could definitely do it.
You can Shadow Step. I guess is Foxy, just because it's the biggest minion, even though it's going to get hero powered anyway. Wait, so we can Garrote. I guess it's not too bad.
So now the Garrote goes in. There is 6 more damage now to come from the deck. Seiko needs to find 3. There goes 1.
And the problem is the taunt.
2 more. Yep, taunt's a big deal.
Yep, Homunculus, I think, pops out this turn, if I'm correct.
I think it was played last turn, was it not? Yeah, it's still 2 turns away.
Okay.
Yeah.
It will still block the 3rd dagger swing that was
correct.
Applied, right?
It will block Seiko's dagger at 1 HP for Bunnyhoppor is the relevant information here.
Easy. Well, don't do that. Illusion, no!
I mean, you could do that if you knew the last card in hand drew a card, for example, but yeah, no reason to do it here, I don't think. He's just working out what the last card is to understand whether or not this is correct to do. Yep, there you go. He's just counting cards, making sure he knows what's going on. The interesting thing of playing Alusha here is, of course, that Seiko then draws a card from the priest deck, so he doesn't draw a bleed. So Bunny doesn't take 6 damage on that turn, but I don't think that's entirely
He just takes
relevant.
6 the next turn, right? It like doesn't
Yep.
overly matter. I think this one's fairly solved simply because there's just those bleeds left. Psycho's going to start taking fatigue. He gets to push 1 more damage, but then the homunculus is coming out.
I'm out of cards.
6. And unlucky, you're out of bleeds. Oh, what a shame. Yeah, pushes the 1. And then this should now be the turn where Danny Dyer's Chocolate Homunculus is going to wake up. And 1 health is all you need if you are Bunnyhoppor in this position. What a series in the end, going all the way down to the wire. A lot of super interesting games, the way things are panned out, but unless I am missing something very obvious, I do not see a conceivable way for Seiko to achieve 1 extra damage this game. And you see the celebration from Bunnyhoppor. Super interesting series being played out from both players, but Bunny is going to march on, continuing what has been a fantastic season for arguably one of the world's very, very best in Bunnyhoppor.
Yeah, and a really, not only a good series and a pretty crazy one, but that last game, I have not seen that pan out too often at all, where Rogue is, normally Rogue is either forced to play tempo or chooses to play tempo and then wins or loses because of it, or they don't, get rushed by the priest, or somehow the Rogue pulls off the combo. I've never quite seen it go down to a 1 health left on the priest fatigue issue with the homunculus. One of the few taunt minions that priest has access to actually saving the day at the end, right? It's a very odd pan out that I have never even seen anything close to this happen before.
And that's why I had my reservations, right? You asked me on that passage turn, do you prep Garrote here? And originally I just had reservations of probably not, right? But then he went with the Kazakas, he took the 5-mana Golem. I'm like, okay, sure, he wants to aggressively fight for board. I guess this makes sense. Get a little bit of chip damage coming in behind that Garrote, thin out his deck a little bit more by dropping 2 cards. I don't think he accounted for quite how aggressive the board refill was from Bunny on the other side, but Bunny himself had got quite deep into his deck at that point, so you had to know that Gandling was coming at some point. But I think the one thing that perhaps couldn't be accounted for from Seiko's side, that you couldn't really blame him for, was that 3-6 homunculus, right? That game was a tale of 2 homunculi, Raven. It was the 3-6 blocker that stopped the 5-5 rush and the 5-5 Kazakas from doing anything relevant on that initial Gandling turn, and then it was the second one awakening at the perfect time with that 1 HP remaining. Yeah, like you said, super